Hi, welcome to Gardening with Leslie and Alan. Today we're going to talk about lawn fertilization. Lawn fertilization, in most recommendations, is about a four-step program. There are cool season grasses and warm season grasses. The cool season grasses are found in the northern portion of the country. Warm season grasses are found in the southern portion of the country. There's also a transition zone where you may have cool season or warm season. It'll just depend. So you do need to know what it is that you have, especially if you live in that transition zone. When you go to your local retailer in the north, pretty much you will not be offered a warm season grass fertilization program, and vice versa. So, a four-step program in the north, which is where we are and where we live, works is obviously used on your cool season grasses, which are fescues, ryegrasses, bluegrass, that type of grass. It's a real fine-bladed piece. The first step in that program is a pre-emergent with a fertilizer. That pre-emergent is for crabgrass pre-emergence. And that's put down just, prior to Easter, once everything starts warming up, but before it gets too warm. You want to get that pre-emergent down on the grass before the ground temperature gets above 55 degrees, which takes about 3 days at 55 degrees for that crabgrass to germinate. Once the crabgrass germinates, the pre-emergent will no longer work. What the pre-emergent does is it prevents the seed from germinating. So that's the goal, is to get it down just prior to that seed germination and as the lawn becomes actively growing so that it can utilize the fertilizer. So you're going to put that down in early spring just before Easter, depending on your area. You'll put that down on the lawn and water it in when you're done. The next step is step 2, which would be a weed and feed. And a weed and feed is the only step that works a little differently. You want to put the weed and feed down on the lawn and leave it on the lawn for 24 to 48 hours, because what it needs to do is sit on the leaf of the plant in order to be absorbed in and kill that weed, get down into the roots and take that dandelion out. Most of the weed and feeds will, they're very good at killing the dandelions and the clovers. There's many other weeds that are listed on the package, so just look on the back of the package if you have other things. One of the things that is very difficult to kill is violets. We have violets in the line. You'll see that in the video. That takes a different chemical in order to get that killed. It's a little bit more difficult to work with. So your weed and feed is going to be applied essentially 60 days after you put down your pre-emergent with fertilizer. Each of your steps is put down about 60 days apart. So you're going to put that down on the lawn. You want to put it down when the lawn is moist so that everything sticks really well and gets absorbed in. The best time to do it is obviously early morning when there's dew on the grass, because then you don't have to water the grass in order to get it moist. So once you put it down, you don't want it to rain on the lawn or to water the lawn for 24 to 48 hours in order to get your best kill. The other recommendation is you want the grass to not have just been mowed. So you want the grass to be high and the weeds to be high so that they will have the largest leaf surface to absorb the chemicals. Then once you apply that, your next step, or your third step, goes on another 60 days out, and that third step is a lawn fertilizer, and a lot of times it's a lawn fertilizer with an insecticide. If you need an insecticide, that in the summer, that's normally used. It can be for grubs, it can be for fleas, ticks, that type of things. So you'll put that down 60 days out, but you do need to make sure that the temperatures are not running into the 80s, because once they get into the 80s, the grass is not actively growing and absorbing that fertilizer as it should. You can always put down an insecticide as a separate application if you need it when the temperatures are high. Then if you have to push it out a little bit, then by all means do until those temperatures come down on your fertilization. So the fourth step is a winterizer, and that fourth step can be a winterizer with feed in it, with feed and weed killer in it, or without. In a lot of areas of the country, if the season goes long enough into November to where the grass is still actively growing, you can put down an application of your winterizer in the September and then again in November. That would allow you to put down a weed killer and, the winterizer with the weed killer and the fertilizer in September, and then just a fertilizer there in November, depending on the area of the country that you live in. So you will have to watch your temperatures on that. One other tip that I want to remind you is as you're going through the season, best recommendations on mowing is that you mow at the top height of your mower, which is a good 3 inches, because when you allow that grass to be 3 inches consistently, the roots will grow deeper and the overall plant will be much stronger. And that is the goal, to give you a nice thick lawn. Fertilizer. Let's talk about the fertilizer. In the, fertilizer, this is made in a slurry and broken, so all of the pieces are the same. There are fertilizers that are in little pellets, so each of the pellets will be different size. So those will be a pellet that has nitrogen, a pellet for phosphorus, and a pellet for potassium. So N, P, and K, nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. What does N, P, and K mean? Nitrogen greens up the lawn and makes it nice and thick on top, gives you a good, healthy plant. Phosphorus is for the overall health of the plant. That will help support the root system as well as seed production and bloom production. So in the grass, in a lot of areas, we no longer utilize this. So your middle number may be a 0. This particular fertilizer is a 2803. And that's because the phosphorus can easily get down into the water table and get into the lakes and rivers, and we don't want that to happen. So in a lot of areas that is restricted. But if I was using it for a vegetable garden, then I would want that, because I'm producing fruit, blooms, things that are important, and I'm going to need that middle number. The last number, your potassium or potash, helps for the overall health of the plant, and it works for the root system. That helps you to get a nice, deep, strong root system and a good, strong plant. So the overall goal is to produce a good, strong plant. That's why we're going through this process. And next steps is Alan's going to show you how to apply it to the lawn. This is a rotary spreader. We'll talk about a rotary versus a drop spreader and how you use them as we go through that portion. Okay, so Alan is ready to put the fertilizer down. He's got his broadcast spreader. We've got the fertilizer in the hopper, and he's setting it to a 3.5. That's what it says on the back of the bag. Please make sure that you always look at your bag and set it to as the recommendations from the manufacturer. So what he's doing is he's going to come in with this broadcast to an edge, and as you can see, he's going very slow to make sure he's not slinging it into the beds. As we come by the sidewalk here, doesn't really matter if it gets onto the sidewalk, because we can just brush it back out. Then he's going over past the rock edge. Once he gets out into the lawn on a broadcast, the advantages is he'll be able to move fairly quickly and get a very broad swipe. As you can see, it's starting to throw out on both sides nice and wide. The main thing is when you're putting this down is, in order to not take a chance of striping the lawn, you want to make sure that you're overlapping it just a little bit in order to get a nice full coverage. So if I was using a drop spreader, this is where I would have to overlap the path of the actual wheels in order to show that I don't stripe the lawn. When I stripe the lawn, that means that the fertilizer doesn't go down in portions, and you'll very clearly be able to see it, because the nitrogen will green the lawn where it is hit, but not where it didn't go there in the wheel striping, hence a striped pattern. Looks kind of like a zebra. Anyway, it's very simple. This is one of the simplest things to do in your lawn maintenance, is to go ahead and put down your own fertilizer, save some money, and get out in the sunshine. Thank you for gardening with Leslie and Alan. We appreciate it. Let us know if you have any questions or comments, and have a wonderful day.